It's because I took a look at the strange gesture of the Black Star painting. The stupid man wanted to lure him with beer. Unexpectedly, the next second, the Black Star suddenly grabbed the man's clothes. Then he stared at him with a fierce look, until the breeder rushed over with the electric stick. The Black Star was a little reluctant to let go of the man. However, what surprised them was that the purpose of the Black Star's action was not to get a beating, but to get the folding knife in the man's pocket. Then, when the zoo was quiet at night, the Black Star tied the knife to a wooden stick. Then he carefully pulled the wooden stick out of the cage. Then he just gently opened the iron door and slipped out. Then he hurried to the activity area during the day. Without further ado, he opened a separately locked iron door and let out the largest of them, the black golden rod. After successfully gaining the trust of the black golden rod, Caesar suddenly, under his threat, quickly captured all the black stars in the zoo. However, looking at these stupid animals, Caesar was not reconciled. Until the day when the wind was blowing, he suddenly saw that the breeder was opening the lock on the door. Then he quietly remembered all the order of the input code. When the night was quiet, he quietly slipped out of the cage. Then he input the code accurately. Then he came to the top of the zoo from the staff passage. Finally, he went to the top of the cage. He slipped out of the zoo without knowing it. However, Caesar did not want to escape. Instead, he took advantage of the night to secretly come to the former owner's house on the mountain. Then he only saw that he opened the refrigerator in the corner. There were several bottles of improved neurotoxins in it. Caesar knew that this virus could cause the evolution of the Black Star. So he didn't say a word. He directly brought all the virus samples back to the zoo. Then, while the stars were sleeping, he released all the viruses with his brain. Soon after one night, the breeder began to wake up all the animals roughly. However, what he didn't know was that all the stars today became very quiet, and every pupil became green. And Caesar was squatting at the entrance of the passage, checking their pupils one by one. Only by making sure that it becomes green will he let it go out, to let the wind out. And Caesar's pupils were originally green. This has become more obvious. However, the owner who saw this scene was very surprised. He only saw the usual noisy stars. Today, they actually got together in an orderly way. But what can a group of animals do? So the owner didn't take this matter to heart. At night, all the stars returned to the cage to rest on their own. However, the breeder who was locked up suddenly saw that Caesar was still standing outside alone. So he immediately asked another breeder to bring a gun. Once he found something wrong, he immediately shot. Just when he was going to drive Caesar into the iron cage with an electric rod, Caesar grabbed the breeder's electric rod with one hand. And then the next second, the terrifying scene in front of him not only shocked the two breeders, but also the stars locked in the cage. However, before they could react, Caesar unhesitatingly punched the breeder. Then he dragged him directly into the cage and locked him up. And then he released all the children and grandchildren in the cage. Unexpectedly, at this time, another breeder suddenly went the wrong way. It was too late for him to try to escape. The stars pulled him down the stairs. Then there was a crazy group of animals in the middle. Fortunately, Caesar took action in time and saved the breeder's life. But Caesar didn't intend to let him go. Then he locked him up in the iron cage. And this strange sound happened to be seen by the perverted breeder who had just woken up. He was just about to rush in with the electric rod. He was rushed over by Caesar's high-pressure water gun. He just killed the breeder in an instant. However, Caesar soon realized something was wrong. He was very clear that he was too smart. Once humans found the abnormality here, he and all his kind would be tested again. Then, under Caesar's leadership, the stars rushed through the glass dome of the zoo and rushed to the city center without hesitation. Then, under Caesar's leadership, the stars began to rush into the parks. Organized and orderly, they rescued those imprisoned comrades. Then they pulled out the big iron rod on the fence. Then they joined Caesar's team, and quickly withdrew. Such a big movement soon aroused the attention of the police. Then they quickly dispatched the Stars to arrest the rebels. Unexpectedly, the Stars were already in a panic at this time. Under Caesar's leadership, they climbed up the tall building to avoid the police's chase. But an injured Star fell to the ground. The passers-by caught it immediately. However, when the man was about to leave with the Star, Caesar was leading his disciples to stand on the roof. Then he received an iron gun. Then he threw the man's car again. When the iron gun pierced the engine cover of the car, the back door was suddenly opened by a Star. It easily shot down the injured Star. However, Caesar knew it was not the time for them to fight. So he hurried to climb up a train with the Star Army. Then he went to the Red Mountain Forest in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Unexpectedly, on the way, they were suddenly blocked by a group of police cars, and the back door was also cut off by the police. Caesar hurried to order his soldiers to divide into 3 groups. First, let the lone dragon climb up the bridge with a group of Stars, then go around from above. Then let the red-haired big Star lead a group of special forces to push in from the bottom of the bridge. And those powerful black golden swordsmen were under Caesar's command. They quickly rushed to a bus in the middle of the road. Then they pushed it forward, as if it were a body. When the police reacted, it was too late, only to see the 3 Star armies launch an attack at the same time. It was just a moment to defeat one side of the human race. However, the Stars were not happy for 2 seconds. Suddenly, an armed helicopter appeared on the bridge. As soon as it appeared, it began to shoot indiscriminately. Caesar hurriedly picked up a thick arm chain and threw it out at supersonic speed. It almost hit the 2 people on the helicopter. The reacted deputy police chief immediately fired at Caesar. However, this angered the black golden sword, only to see him push Caesar away. Then he jumped over the helicopter with lightning. Then the 2 people took off together from the sky. Caesar hurriedly ran over to check. However, the black golden sword still left because the injury was too serious. At this time, someone suddenly asked Caesar for help in the helicopter. When Caesar looked up, he found that the other party was the one who caused all this. Then he turned around and looked at the poisonous smoke on one side, only to see that it was a long time ahead. At the next moment, the helicopter suddenly fell off the 100-meter bridge. Then Caesar no longer hesitated. He led his Star Army all the way through the bridge. He ran straight to the opposite Red Mountain Forest to get their freedom. That's all for today. See you next time.